Hey guys, so it looks like the Twitter weasels have been at it again. What have they said this time, Michelle? I hear you say. Well, I'm glad you asked, because we've got one of them calling the Fruitland Police incompetent and appealing for Brian Entin to get involved. We've got another one saying that, well, perhaps Tyler, Michael Vaughan's dad, was asleep with the baby for 2 to 2.5 hours. You know, it could have been like 4 o'clock and Grandpa went for a haircut and the other kids were doing other things and, well, he was asleep. And by the time he realised it was 6:30 and he went to look for Michael, and Michael was nowhere to be seen, so he's gone far longer than what Tyler says in the accepted timeline. See, because the accepted timeline is that Michael was seen by neighbours between 6:30 and 6:45. So I think what's happened now is that they've realised that the timeline is really very tight. So couldn't have been murdered? Not at all. Not in that time frame by a family member. They've now gone with the neglect angle. You know, that Tyler's lying about what he was doing and where he was. He wasn't just changing the baby and ordering a pizza, you know, and that he was distracted for 15 to 20 minutes. It might have been longer than that. Well, it might have been longer than that, but we don't know that, do we? And we know that Michael was very much alive and well between 6:30 and 6:45. So then we get another bright spot comes along and says, well, maybe Tyler wasn't in the house. Maybe he'd gone to the shop. Maybe he'd gone for a smoke. So not asleep in the house for 2 to 2.5 hours. No, not that. Completely different. So this one, he'd gone to the shop and he'd left Michael home alone. Except he wasn't quite alone because there was other kids in the house, but that looks like neglect to me. Anyway, we've no evidence for that either. But they've played part of a phone call with Tyler. It's about 2 minutes long. I'm going to play it for you because it's one of those situations, again, where they've snipped 2 minutes out of a far longer conversation and highlighted certain words that mean things to them, you know, because they're great Twitter sleuths, aren't they? Yeah, so listen to this. So apparently, the best way to explain this phone call and this explanation that Tyler gave is that he wasn't in the house, that he was at the shop. Well, how about this? How about Tyler was doing exactly what he said he was doing? That he was changing the baby, ordering pizza online, you know, like you do. And he thought, you know, when you have a kid and they go quiet and you think, they're up to something. Shouted for Michael. First place he went was the backyard, because he knows Michael goes out playing in the backyard because he's not allowed in the front yard. So he went out in the backyard, couldn't find him. Went in the house, looked all over, couldn't find him. Went back in the backyard, couldn't find him. Ran all about and then thought, look, he's not here. I'm going to have to get in the car and I'm going to go to the splash pad. Because why? Because that's exactly where Michael's been on previous occasions when he's got out of the house. How is any of this indicating neglect? How is any of this indicating that Tyler was doing anything else other than what Tyler said he was doing? So, you weasels, you Twitter sleuths, don't give up the day job, eh? I've got to play this. You see, what I don't like are people who are basically taking the piss out of a family who befriended you, thought you were there to help. You stab them in the back because you know better than anybody else. You know better than law enforcement. You think there's something going on here that no one else has seen, no one else has found. And there's got to be something that you can dig up about this family. And now you've realised couldn't have been a family murder. So you're clutching at straws. You're really reaching. You're reaching for the stars. But not in a good way. You know what? I don't like people like this. Where there are massive question marks, where there are lots of inconsistencies, where there are massive red flags, you know, like in the Summerwells case, that's one thing. But sometimes kids are abducted and it's not anything to do with the family. This is a really sad, very unfortunate situation of a little inquisitive, curious, intelligent child who's got out. He's wanted someone to play with. He was a little bit bored. It was a summer's evening. He went out to play and he met a predator. Is that too difficult to believe? Why are you continuing to put this family through this drama that you're trying to drum up on Twitter when the accepted facts speak for themselves? He was seen by neighbours. We know Tyler was at the splash pad only 15 minutes after a neighbour claims to have seen him. We know the 911 call came in at 7:20? By 8:20, an endangered child alert had gone out. There was a massive search underway. You've realised all that now, so now you're just nitpicking. I don't like people like this. I don't like people like this in the true crime community. So stop.